Okay, AI. Everyone's talking about it, it's everywhere, and well, it's been around for quite a while, but I guess the explosion is just starting at the moment, and it's going to be underpinning digital transformation for the foreseeable future. The downside, if you like, is everyone knows that it's quite power hungry, and bearing in mind that the IT sector, and I guess data centers in particular, are supposed to be looking at sustainability and net zero roadmaps. AI perhaps isn't the most helpful thing to be dealing with. Just perhaps your thoughts as to whether those two things are compatible or not, I suppose.
Yeah, Sawa, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, happy to. I guess the first thing to call out is uh, we believe AI can be a force for good. So we see the positive lens to AI. AI has the potential to drive efficiencies and increase productivity. In our own research, BT's own research, we found, or we approximated approximately 8.5 gigatons of CO2 uh, global greenhouse gas emissions could be reduced through the use of technologies, including AI. So we definitely see it as a force for good. But what we do need to make sure is, and I think a lot of the organizations in the sector will need to shoulder some of the responsibility in making sure that AI is used for good and that the environmental considerations are brought in as part of the overall AI strategy and the design of AI. Um, what we do know is, and the research has confirmed that very recently, is energy draw from large language models do consume more energy because they run on GPUs as opposed to standard models, which tend to run on CPUs, and they can, according to the World Economic Forum, use up to 33 times more energy. And then at the same time, we're going to see an explosion in AI-powered devices, growth in data centers to accommodate all of that. And Goldman Sachs recently reported 160% increase in power consumption requirement just for data centers for AI by 2030. So everything in terms of environmental impact can be seen as increasing. So it's really important that organizations who enable the growth of AI, particularly in the ICT sector, provide end users and end customers with frameworks, guidance, and technology that can ensure that there are no barriers to deploying AI in a sustainable way. Maria, I don't know if you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, I think it's a hugely important question, and it's one why we came together in the first place, right? We are recognizing that ourselves and other businesses are asking how can we balance AI and sustainability, and we know that we did a survey about 6 out of 10 organizations that were participating are concerned around how AI will potentially compromise the environmental efforts that they are already having in terms of sustainability. If you allow me, I want to take a little bit of a step back because this conversation around AI and sustainability is sort of fueled by two macro trends that we are seeing at the moment, which is the sort of the tech transformation that is so much driven by the AI and the accessibility of now also generative AI as well. And then the other one is the climate and sustainability. And those transformations are complex by nature, and they will be for any organization. But the way we sort of tend to look at it is how can you look at AI in terms of its footprint, so its environmental impact, but also the handprint of it. So how does it have a societal positive impact? And I mean, we really truly believe that sustainability is an integral part of the success for AI. It's not an either or discussion. It's two sides of the same coin, and we see that when this conversation is combined, it creates massive benefits. For us, it's a business imperative in terms of how we are using sustainability and in driving our organization, and it's a key tenet of how we are operating. So it's coming back to basically our purpose of creating a technology that drives human progress. So we definitely see it as a combined conversation more than anything.
And although it's obviously incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to do the sort of the sums required. You sort of suggested basically that whatever the downside of AI in terms of the power increase, the plus side, all the things, the ways in which it'll, if you like, save power usage, and by like we're meeting up here as opposed to trogging off to London or wherever else we might meet up. So, etc. You think that the sort of pluses for AI outweigh the minus, or at least there's a fairly neutral sort of end result between those two. Is that right?
Yeah, I think if most companies are making pragmatic business decisions today, right? And I think if they are using the same mindset to AI, you will naturally also see derived sustainability effects, because you're starting to asking yourself, what should we be using AI for? How do we then right size it? And how do we put it into operation organization so we get the most benefits from it? And when you start to look at that, there will be a natural energy conversation around AI as well. And therefore, these components will be brought back into the same conversation.
Okay, and the reason we're talking today specifically, I guess, is because Dell and BT, you've developed together a 5-point plan in terms of helping organisations sustainably adopt and run GenAI. I guess it'd be good to just walk through those 5 points. So I think the first one is, I guess, establishing your carbon baseline. So I guess that's the sort of classic. If you don't know where you're starting from, you don't know what the progress. But please talk us through that.
But no, you're exactly right. Like if you cannot really change what you don't know or what you don't measure. And coming from the IT world and how we help customers is usually, no matter which project we're working on, is around establishing a baseline. In this sentence, we are now talking about including carbon and energy usage as a really important factor as well. So that's why establishing this first step of knowledge is very much the crucial part of it, because from there you can start to make decisions around KPIs and how you are moving forward, and potentially also highlight what areas can we improve on and where should we really sort of take our first priorities. And this involves the entire digital value chain, if you will. So from the manufacturing, the transportation, the end of life, how we're taking it back, and then very much when we talk about AI workloads, GenAI workloads, the usage within the data center, the power and cooling that's involved with that, and then the network including as well. So identifying these areas and understanding what is my starting point is really where we want what we've seen has been a success for a lot of customers. And I will say this because you hit on it really nicely, right? But we cannot know everything to begin with, and we may not have exact data. The whole point is to get started. So using estimated data, maybe be aware of the assumptions that's been used, is providing a very valuable starting point, no matter what, to begin the work. And it also then aligns into some of the regulatory elements that we're starting to see, for instance, from the UK in terms of the data reporting that's coming from 2025. So there are these ways of starting to understand your baseline. And then I think the exercise is becoming, how do you then implement real tools to measure your power consumptions as you move forward, so you get the actual data and you can start to use that rather than maybe the ones where you have maybe 10 points of assumptions around it.
And just maybe follow, I mean, is it too simplistic to say that if whatever your baseline, it should only from that point onwards go downwards, or bearing in mind, as you say, there's maybe some guesstimations going on, you shouldn't necessarily beat yourself up in the short term as to where it goes, but I don't know, over a period of sort of 18 months, 2 years, if it's not going down, then something's potentially not working with the plan. Is that fair to say?
That would be how we would love it, wouldn't it? Unfortunately, what we saw, which was really clear when the energy crisis that happened a few years back. So the emissions factors, so when we talk about sustainability and energy and carbon emissions, those are actually two different things. So your energy usage might go down. That would be naturally also potentially a cost saving to the business. But the emissions factor may actually increase. So the UK emissions factor, after maybe a few years ago, after the energy crisis, the emissions factors was increased rather than decreased for the entire nation, because of the renewables was not, there was a higher mix of non-renewables into the actual power grid that the data centers, for instance, were drawing and we were using in our own homes. So that's where this conversation is. This is where the complexity adds to it, isn't it? That we are controlling what we operate in our own business, but who we are working with in terms of power suppliers and how they are delivering, what kind of mix they're delivering into our facilities and data centers has a huge value as well. And that discussion is very much part of discussing this as well.
Okay, and in terms of the second of in terms of the 5 points, we move on to sustainable architecture, which yeah, be good to understand what that is and the impact that that can make.
Yeah, and it seems a little bit fluffy, doesn't it, Jill? It's embed sustainability across your infrastructure. And what does it mean? And for customers, there are many different ways to do so. We are seeing customers establishing the carbon baseline and energy usage first, and then they move into what can we then do next as part of scoping out project, as part of procurement exercises. Some are doing this at the exact same time. Now, coming from Dell and the world that we are living in, our world evolves around the hardware and solution that supports these types of workloads. So when we are helping customers, we're looking at how can we help them modernize and deliver more efficient, energy efficient servers and storage solutions that maybe have a high level of data reduction technology with it. So the intelligence that sits within the solutions we are delivering. And then we are starting to see some very cool trends around liquid cooling, for instance, in order to accommodate these high intensive AI workloads. And I think a really good example is the Cambridge University that's deployed the UK's fastest AI supercomputer on Dell servers. And they're using direct liquid cooling technology in order to provide a much more efficient and cost-effective solution compared to traditional air-cooled systems. So there are different ways around of looking at this.
And I guess just following on from that perspective in terms of how Dell are supporting customers from a BT angle, we're providing the core networking capabilities, i.e. the digital backbone for organizations to move their AI workloads around into and from and in between data centers. And in that instance, making sure that our customers are able to think proactively around dimensioning their switches correctly and not oversizing them. That's a really key part. So getting a good understanding of the type of patterns that they may expect to see from AI model deployment and making sure there's just the right size amount of capacity available will also reduce energy consumption. Also thinking about the type of network, if it's for large models, then utilizing fixed networking capabilities as opposed to mobile networking capabilities is more efficient. And then same for the way the architecture is built for networks. So rather than everything in terms of AI training and running AI and inferencing, which is in between, being run fully in the cloud, some of the research shows that having a distributed architecture, having networking and data moving closer to the source, more locally between data centers, is far more efficient. So those are the type of things we're trying to encourage customers to consider as part of their network design with BT.
And I'm just wondering, I mean, obviously you're there, both of you, to help your customers sort of on this journey, but is there somewhere people can go and download, the blueprint for sustainable architecture? Should it be obvious to them because they, understand how their data center or, infrastructure runs? Or yeah, just how easy, I guess, is it to come up with a strategy for implementing sustainable architecture?
Yeah, I can take that first. In terms of network design, our view is customers, we can collaborate with customers to actually help dimension their network based on the AI model they want to deploy. And we'll talk a little bit around this on step 3, which is one of the principles, but we have a new network called Global Fabric, and Global Fabric helps customers to innovate at pace by connecting into the multi-cloud. In this instance, the BT network designers would look at the data profile, the current data profile and the future data profile for customers wanting to run their AI models, and they would provide recommendations back to the customer in terms of that connectivity piece, how to run it more efficiently, should it be distributed, etc. So that is a core part of the networking service that BT provides, and we've very much baked in energy efficiency as part of that professional service, managed service offering for our customers moving on to this new network called Global Fabric.
Okay, yeah, maybe then, as you sort of referenced it, we'll move on to number 3 in the list, and that's, I think, it's right-sizing your investments with the as-a-service models. So I'd be fascinated to find out, because obviously, as a service is growing massively, and then there's been some kind of pushback, so people are thinking, oh, maybe I should go back to on-prem. So again, just sort of enlighten us as to the as-a-service models, what the particular benefits there are when it comes to sustainability, AI, etc.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, go ahead. You go first. Go ahead.
Okay, I think what we are coming back to one of a previous point, right, which is very much about how do we right size any IT in general, and making sure that that is working out, because unfortunately one of the primary use cases for high energy usage and where you can maybe lower your carbon fairly quickly is poor usage of IT assets. So looking into, are you utilizing your IT in a good way? And when we are talking about using as a service models for AI, it sort of beckons the question and creates the reflection on what do you need your AI for in your organization, in your business? Do you need to build a general purpose large language model, or do you maybe need something that's more domain and enterprise specific, and therefore could you go into using a pre-trained model rather than building it from scratch, and therefore maybe easing the adoption and cost that's related to the energy demand? And I just want to touch a little bit about something that Sarwar touches on, and you asked Phil around what's the blueprint for this. And we're obviously both BT and Dell, we are each and combined helping customers and partners with this. But what we're seeing is when the business are working with the IT organization and the facility management, especially OT, we start to see a collaborative within the organization where they are understanding the different effects that is having, for instance, by putting AI into their operations. Because carbon emissions from an AI perspective is more or less directly impacted, like factors around the type of hardware and how efficient that particular hardware is. And to Sarwar's point of they're running on whether they're running on CPUs or GPUs, the number of training this model will be doing, the duration of it, the time, and therefore driving the energy from the grid, and therefore the mix of actually coming into the data centers. So what we are seeing is customers who are already interested in a multi-cloud strategy, working with us and with BT, they have opportunities to not only make sure they have the right assets and the right IT available to them for hosting and deploying AI workloads at the right time. It has these derived benefits in terms of reducing overpriced capacity, or actually in the way the amount of what we are manufacturing, so the e-waste is also getting a benefit from this. So looking into these as a service models in a more nuanced way actually has multiple benefits.
Yeah, and I guess just to add to that, the way we'd see as a service is increased flexibility, and in the case of AI, flexibility is going to become a really important parameter, particularly as the way the models are developed evolves over time. And we've just seen that a couple of days ago with with China's version of AI and utilizing less resources. If you go with a fixed infrastructure model, then over time, if your model adapts and it doesn't require as much resources, it could have a cost implication in terms of having those fixed resources, but also it's consuming more power, particularly when you don't require it. So the flexibility piece is really important. Spinning up resources as and when you need it is a core part of as a service as well. So for us, that goes back to the point around global fabric, and on the networking side, making sure that customers can connect into different data centers or different regions only when they require, or certain certain cloud providers for certain AI models. You don't need to be connected all the time to every location. So it's about retaining that flexibility, and that's what Global Fabric, for example, provides our customers.
Okay, and you mentioned there the word location, and I think that nicely brings us on to point four, which is location, location, location. So I'm interested because obviously there's different ways of interpreting that as to where maybe your data centers sit, how close you are to your applications, etc. So please tell us what you're talking about when you stressing the importance of location in this situation.
Yeah, maybe I can start, Maria, and then you'd like to build on that. But I'll go back to a point Maria made earlier, which was around energy reduction doesn't necessarily equate to carbon emissions reduction. So organizations are really going to have to think carefully around where they deploy their AI models, and that could mean where the data center resides, if that's where the model is being trained and run. So that UK example, COVID, where the grid carbon intensity, the intensity factor increased rather than decreased, even though energy consumption was going down, is a prime example of that. So having a really good understanding of the emissions factors and across the different regions is one important parameter. But another one that we recommend to our customers is going back to your point, do we believe that AI overall will have a net benefit if we think about its overall impact, but then the impact it can have? In that case, you need to actually think about making some potential trade-offs, and the trade-off has to be between key parameters which are used today actually by most organizations when thinking about where to store data, and that is latency, sovereignty, and now sustainability. And in some cases, if latency is not a critical parameter, then you may want to push sustainability to be the lead parameter, and that might mean making a trade-off. And maybe that trade-off in terms of latency, a few milliseconds, depending on the AI model of the application, is perfectly acceptable. But for most organizations to get to a position where they're considering those trade-offs, they really need to get under the skin of what are they using those AI models for? Is it being run efficiently, and how could it grow in the future as well? So it's really important that organizations do consider location as an important parameter.
Mm-hmm. And we see it as well, right? We see it as a bring AI to where your data resides, wherever that is. And both with edge computing, when we talk about the bigger organization running data centers and having an edge architecture, we're also seeing with the new ways that PCs within our own portfolio is being developed, and workstation is able to run smaller language models. So we're coming back to this question of what kind of model are you using? Does it need to be hosted, for instance, in a data center, or is it maybe available to your users, maybe online as part of your PC? So and having that offering, so you start to look at what makes the most sense, as Sarwar was saying, for our organization, not only to use AI, but how are people going to use it in their daily lives as part of work? So both with BT and ourselves, there are these focus on what's the locations in terms of the physical locations, but also what's the assets we're using as well.
And as you're both, if I may say, ably demonstrating expertise in this area is very important. So I think the final point is collaborating with partners and suppliers. I guess what you're saying, is that you've got a vast amounts of knowledge between you. So when people are looking at this, you can help them work out what the best decisions rather than them sort of, I won't say thrashing around in the dark, but they may not have all the, all the answers to hand, shall we say. So collaboration, partnership, important, yes.
Yeah. And I guess it's not just with BT and Dell. If you think about the AI ecosystem, it's going to stretch all the way from the network, someone like a BT, infrastructure provider like Dell, through to the data center operators, and then into the cloud environment. And then you've got the AI applications and AI model expertise, deep expertise companies. So it's going to be a very broad, very big ecosystem. So the earlier the organizations engages everyone along that ecosystem, there's a chance to influence efficiency, particularly when it comes to resource, energy, and carbon efficiency right from the beginning, and challenging and working with each of the suppliers within that ecosystem. So as well as working in collaboration, we'd also encourage doing that early as possible, and working on the design of the AI model from a very early onset.
And it's one of those where AI and sustainability is sharing some of the same themes. So sustainability, like AI, is not a standalone conversation. It is an ecosystem conversation. It's not something we are solving necessarily by ourselves. We are relying on knowledge and collaboration from the ecosystem in the way we are operating as business. And we are seeing that a high number of in our surveys, I think it was 78%, are saying that they're relying on their technology vendors to have transparent and sustainability goals and really demonstrate the accountability across those. So that also means when we are providing solutions to our customers to utilize AI, this is an aspect that naturally comes into it. And we really do think that combining sustainability and AI and GenAI is having a huge beneficial impact on ESG, so environmental, social, and governance overall, when technologies companies are working together on innovation for a positive impact for environment and society.
And just, I think we mentioned it at the top of the conversation, but also, I suppose companies should, and how do they factor in the fact that yes, AI may well be consuming, I think significant amount of extra power at various stages, depending on which predictions you look at, but also it's then going to be saving significant amounts of powers in different ways. So is it easy for companies to kind of do those sums, or at least say, okay, well, if we're going to need 50% more capacity in data centers, just for example, but we know in 5 years' time we'll save more than that because all the different ways we're going to interact internally with our customers. Is that, how achievable, I suppose, is that sum, if you like?
Well, it's definitely something we as Dell are helping our customers with, right? We are looking at what's the current situation, where would they like to be on their technology roadmap. And then we are giving them estimates alongside working with new services around how are you actually utilizing your IT assets. So you're getting energy numbers, you're getting your emissions factor numbers, and then you get that baseline. So that's something that is naturally part of the work that we are doing when we are developing new solutions with our customers, and what roadmap they really want to be on. So Sarwar from BT.
Yeah, would I say very, very much the same. We'd help do the baselining, and we know Dell has some great tools, and we've got some great tools as well, like the Carbon Network dashboard, which helps customers to understand where they are today, and then simulate different environments and see what's the best option for them. And what we are seeing from a lot of our customers is they are considering the net benefit, because for many organizations, the case for AI is still very much dependent on a business case. So they still have to demonstrate to the board that by deploying AI, there is a net overall benefit. And a key consideration from speaking to many of them is around energy and carbon. That is being factored in. But then some of the other gains is also being factored in, and that's predominantly what the business case hangs on, is something around productivity, potentially something around efficiency. So a lot of our organizations are starting to do the maths in a way of getting the board to support them with the AI journey. And I guess going back to that point around collaboration, it's important that organizations engage everyone across that supply chain to try and get a bigger picture of where all the impacts lie.
And maybe just in summary, I mean, I was going to just ask if you're confident that sort of, a digital AI world is and sustainable world are sort of, achievable, compatible. I mean, we've had, whether it's in the States or even more recently, shall we say, in the UK with the announcement of, I think, a third runway. I know it's been announced before. There's some sort of, if not pushback, suggestion that, to grow businesses, we have to, if not ignore the environment, at least compromise slightly. Do you think that's, I don't know, should I ask you, is that a helpful narrative to sort of pit them against each other, or should people be able to and honestly say we can do both of these things? Or do you worry maybe that there will be a bit of a pushback if they're seeing governments kind of suggest that, if you want to grow your economy, you don't necessarily follow all the sustainability opportunities rules, however you character. Yeah, I don't know if you want to give us some thoughts on that.
Yeah, maybe I can go first, Maria. But what we believe is that you can decouple growth from sustainability, so you can achieve both hand in hand. It's actually the lens that you apply to both instances. And we have seen some great examples in the corporate space. For example, Mars, just before Christmas, they announced that they had reduced their group emissions by 8%, at the same time grown revenue by 60%. And they were going to continue investing. I think they were putting forward $1 billion towards net zero again for the next 3 years. So that's a really good example how organizations who take the right approach in terms of decoupling growth and consideration for the environment can grow. So what does that actually mean, and what needs to be considered for organizations? And I think it comes down to innovation. This is a great moment for innovation, because if we accept the challenge that everyone can benefit from AI if deployed in the right manner, then we also have to shoulder the responsibility in terms of the impact it can have. And therefore, that should fuel innovation. And we are starting to see pockets of really good innovation coming up. So Maria referred to liquid cooling. That's only emerged over the last few years in terms of the needs and the growth of data centers and trying to continuously drive energy efficiency. We've seen some announcement by data operators around direct air capture for data centers, a very new topic, utilizing waste heat from data centers for local district heating systems, like powering swimming pools and so on. So I believe we will see an innovation approach, and I think there'll be increased pressure which will drive that anyway. So for example, going back to the announcement a couple of days ago around DeepSeek and the amount of resources it's consuming in comparison to other AI providers, they claim that they're using far less resources, far less intensive in terms of energy, because they're using less GPUs. In that instance, that's going to come from innovation. So that will now force other providers of that technology to think about how they provide infrastructure in a way that is far more efficient, because that will be the new currency. Because with efficiency, most times there's also a cost benefit, either for the end user or for the infrastructure operator. So I think I'm really positive about it. I think it's about the mindset, and we will see more innovation in the coming years that help balance both of those.
Yeah, and we're seeing the same things, right? When we've seen I wouldn't worry potentially too much about the narrative, and yes, there are regulations and they're looking at maybe simplifying, but businesses have already invested both in AI and sustainability, and these are a long-term operational risk. There is a very different conversation to this around that particular area. But what we've seen very, very hands-on is when businesses have introduced sustainability and efficiencies as a measurement or KPI for their business cases in part of scoping projects, sustainability becomes a change driver for a number of reasons. One is the individuals in the workforce tend to have a sort of more tangible feeling of, we are trying to make this place a little bit better. And you suddenly are able to go home and speak to your family about how many houses or cars you've saved driving around the world for one day. So suddenly you're getting a language in a different way. But you're also coming at the projects from, as Sarwar was mentioning earlier, another lens. And by changing sometimes the glasses of what we look through, we start to see some of the gaps we wouldn't have realized otherwise. So for us, we think there is definitely it offering a ground for optimism of how we are utilizing AI and Gen AI through more of a determined effort and continuous innovation. So we definitely think that there's ongoing investments for sustainable technologies.
Okay, I mean, it's been brilliant to chat to you, and you've given some really, I have to say, some different insights than I often get. So I really appreciate that. Some refreshing opinions. So thank you, Maria and Sarah, for your time. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.